Welcome, thanks for coming to the session. I've had a few people come up and say they're looking forward to the session, which I thought was interesting, so I'm the only non-financial speaker on the agenda, so maybe that's a bit of point of difference. So what I'm going to do today is talk about personal branding, but I'm going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So I've worked in marketing for a long time. I've specialised in personal branding for over 15 years. I've worked on all the technologies. And so anything you want to ask me about marketing or branding, feel free to do that. But I do have a presentation to go through which will, I hope, encourage you and demystify a little bit about being more online, because working with service professionals, which is my speciality, I work with doctors, lawyers, accountants, financial people, consultants, all people who sell their ideas. You know, they're not selling products, they are the product. And so in order to do that, being online is kind of important, but the problem is, it's very challenging. People find it difficult to put themselves out there. What do I say? What do I do? I don't want to seem like, you know, I'm just posting random things. What I had for breakfast, no one really cares about. How do I do it without, you know, interrupting, you know, the APRA guidelines? You know, I don't want to give advice. How do I give information that's useful? It's quite tricky. And so I navigate those territories with my clients all the time, with surgeons, you know, financial advisors. I'm going to show an example of one of the financial advisors I've worked with just recently, and hopefully give you some tips which you can take away and just do a little bit more, move the needle a little bit on your brand if you want to attract either more clients, more importantly, staff, because 500 graduates every year, how many, you know, financial advisors are trying to attract those? A lot. Or partnerships, which is what I do a lot. I help people fundraise, I help people merge and acquire other companies. How do you find that right fit? How do you attract them? How do you become attractive to them? I'll show you some tips. So just before I go on, I'll just tell you a little bit about me for context, just so you know where this all came from, because working in personal branding wasn't something I told my careers guidance counsellor in high school. I actually wanted to work in business, worked for my family business for a long time, and we had an office products business in Preston. When my grandfather came back from the war, he started that. It was all orchards, built a factory, started selling office products to companies. And that's all I ever wanted to do, is work for my grandfather. So I did that, and at a tender age of 21, he pushed me out the door and said, go sell some office products to companies. I had no idea, and it was disastrous. I had no idea what to do. I couldn't sell. I'd walk into factories, I'd, you know, be shivering. I'd be nervous and didn't do well. But what I learned is that people want to buy stuff. People need help with things. So the people I'd visit, they need stuff, but they didn't want to be sold stuff. And there's a big difference between selling and helping. And so what I learned is if I help them, you know, where do I get this widget from? You know, I need this really urgently. Can you help me out, Andrew? I would become very helpful, and I would do whatever I could to help my clients out. And what I did is I built trust. And that trust meant that I kept their business and they referred me to other people and I got more business. And at 21, 22, I had the fastest growing territory out of all of our company. I was beating all the sales reps who had been there for 20 years. And I didn't know how to sell. And you don't need to know how to sell. Don't sell. Online, don't sell. Don't be pushy. Just help. Find out the people you love, the people you want to work with, and just help them. Give them advice. Not financial advice, advice around their life and the things they want to achieve. Broad principle, but something to hold true and something I learned. It's gone well for me in my career. So after that, I went to work at Hewlett-Packard. At the time, it was the Apple. It was the biggest computer company in the world, most successful. Then I went from there to Census, which was Telstra's digital arm. I was looking after the AFL, NRL rights for their digital marketing. We created maps. We did a whole bunch of different things, created website management, SEO. So I did a lot of digital stuff. My first campaign at Census was in MySpace before Facebook was even around. So I've been doing this a long time. And then I moved to IBM and a few other companies before I was a corporate escapee and left corporate to start my own business when I had young kids, because I didn't want work dictating my life and my time. I wanted to dictate my own time. And I fully believe that you should build a business around your life rather than build your life around your business. And that's what I help my clients to do. So during that time, I started Social Start, which is my first business, been running it for 12 years. I started a few startups on the way because I can't help myself. So Tribe's a digital marketplace for influencers. So I started that, sold it many years ago. And now I'm working on a company called Campus Life, which helps connect businesses with university students to help them alleviate their time. So like a VA, but really insourced in this country, sitting in your office potentially. During that time, I studied a lot of universities and then started teaching. So I teach at RMIT now, but I did a Master of Entrepreneurship at Swinburne. I teach there, and I used to teach at Monash as well. So I've done a lot of teaching, and that's where I get my students from, funnily enough. I like mentoring, and I like helping kids. So I bring them into my company, and I train them up. So that's the business. Now, on to you. So I want to give you a few principles of branding that I think are really important. One is, don't sell, help. The other one is people think that digital is not the same as meeting face-to-face. And that's true for some cases. However, if you think about what we're really selling in our businesses, it's not the products we're selling, and I'll talk about those in a moment because they are important, but what we're really selling is trust, particularly in this industry, particularly at this time. How do people trust us? How do workers trust that we're going to look after them? How do people trust that we'll look after their money and their interests, not just our interests? So Malcolm Gladwell, does anyone know Malcolm Gladwell? Anyone? Yep, cool. So he's written lots of books. He's one of my favourite authors, and he wrote a book called Blink. And in that, he talked about the 10,000 hour rule, which has kind of become a bit of a thing. People know that in 10,000 hours, you're an expert at something. And so he said that in 10,000 hours, you're an expert, and then when you're an expert, you can measure things and judge things in a blink of an eye. What that means is that you can make a judgment call and decide if that's good or bad for you in a blink of an eye. And I use my wine. I have a lot of corporate escapees. I've got a guy who went from IT into wanting to be a wine connoisseur. He's doing his certifications, and I use him as an example. I like wine, and if you poured me a nice glass of red like I had last night, I would go, oh, that's nice. Fruity or yummy. That'd be my vocabulary. But imagine his vocabulary. He'd be like, did you taste the blackberry notes? Did you notice the after finish? It was this. And he'd look at the colour and go, oh, that must be a Cabernet from this region. And he could smell it and tell you what year, and he could drink it and tell you exactly the winery. Like, that's expertise. That's practice. That's years of practice taking something subconscious, taste, like, into conscious, which is a written description of something that I can interpret and go, oh, I actually notice all those things now that you've told me. So that's what an expert can do. So I use this in this context for us. So how long have you all been looking at people's faces for? 10,000 hours? All your life, right? We're all hardwired. As soon as we see someone's face, we make a judgment. Like, dislike, trust, don't trust, want to know more, want to know less. Yeah? Now, does that apply to digital? Does it apply to something seen on your phone or a screen? And I say yes. Has anyone ever been to the movies? Yeah? Anyone ever cried in a movie? Come on, guys. I know you have. Dirty dozen at the end when they'll die. So, people cry in movies, but why? It's a 2D projection on a white screen. We know they're paid actors. It's a script. It's not real. Do our emotions know that it's not real? No. Does the subconscious know real and not real? No. Does it know that it's not live and that it's a facsimile? No, it does not. The human brain has not caught up in our 60,000 years of evolution with the digital era. So a video of you online has impact as if you were here speaking face-to-face. A picture of you on your LinkedIn profile has as much impact as the way you appear today. It's important. In a blink of an eye, people are going to judge you subconsciously, not necessarily consciously. They can't explain it, but they just feel something. And if I named any celebrity, like let's say George Clooney. Anyone like George Clooney? Anyone think George Clooney's, what do we think about him? What's his personality? What do we instantly feel when I say a name like that? And if, I presume people haven't met him, maybe someone has. Generally no one has, I've tested this a few times. But you have those assertions and those feelings and those assumptions, but you don't know why. Oh, was it the movie I saw? Was it you just kind of know. And you kind of know from all these drips of things that you've seen over time, a movie, a news article, what someone else has said, drinking from his coffee, an espresso, yes, no. And that's you. People, everything you do drips in to people's digital feed, and eventually they have a 360-degree view of you, whether it's right or wrong, based on what they've seen online before they even meet you. Because chances are you're not going to meet everybody before they see you online. So your first impression is digital before you get to physical. I've got clients I've never even met at all, and we've worked together for a long time. Does it matter? I'd like to meet them face to face. I think it's better. I'm a people person, but you don't have to do it for business. So your online brand is important. People will judge you in a blink of an eye. So who are these people? When you think about that, knowing what I've just said, what do you think about these people? What do you think they do for a living? Do you trust them? I put this up the other day and I said, what do you think about this guy in the middle? And someone says, oh, he's a car salesman. I'm like, really? I think he looks pretty trustworthy. It's actually my accountant, right? Would you be surprised if I said that guy in the middle is an accountant? Most people would go, no, he probably looks like an accountant. I go, yeah, because that's what he does, right? He's a mate of mine from school. The girl on the left, is she an accountant? Most people go, nah, she doesn't look like an accountant. She looks like something else. So we make these assumptions about what people look like, and all I say when I do photos of people is just look like you. It's not a brand that we construct and it's all these, we want people to perceive us like this. It's just you. But the business version of you, the professional version of you, the version of you that would show up to a meeting when you're going to see them next time. Yeah? Authentic you. Not the you 10 years ago, not the you in the best light that you've ever seen with a filter, just you. Because that's what builds trust, authenticity. And so we try and build real brands. When you're talking to people, just talk to them like people. What do you post? Post something that would help the people that you like to help. Is it useful for them? Does it have utility? Great, post it. Yeah, curate something that's useful. All right, so business has changed. Now I've been putting this slide up for 15 years because business keeps changing. The latest change is, AI. Who's doing AI? Who's using ChatGPT? No one, hardly anyone. Of course you are. People say, everyone's using it. Are they using it? It's there, it's popular, it's in the news, but is it functional and usable for you today? And I go, it could be, but it doesn't replace the humanness. It doesn't replace you doing things for clients. It's an adjunct. So for people who are worried about AI, and I talk a lot about using these programs, we use it a bit in work, but not that much thus far. But it will be prevalent. It'll just be like the internet, in my personal opinion. So I don't want to talk too much about that, but if people have got questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. The other thing is social media. The big things in social media. TikTok, the rise of TikTok. Who's on TikTok here? Anyone? No one? Wow. So TikTok is the most popular app at the time. Has anyone got kids? Yeah? You'll know TikTok. Yeah? My 14-year-old only has TikTok. He's like Instagram. It's for old people, right? Yet my 18-year-old, he's really not on much social media at all. He has an Instagram account. He doesn't even bother with social media. It's really interesting how things are changing over time. The social media that I use for my clients, and I've been using for 10 years, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your professional network. We do use other things, particularly things like YouTube, because that's a really useful search engine. And we might use something else if it's appropriate for that particular demographic and so forth. But think about this. We're all in a particular demographic, most of us anyway. The people who we're hiring are not in our demographic. The younger generation of customers is not in our demographic. They are on these mediums. Yeah? That's their source of truth. Gen Y and Z is the biggest demographic group in the world today. And they're not all teenagers, they're 30-year-olds now, right? They're in jobs, they're earning money, they're the next people that we're going to hire and the next people that are going to be buying our services. Are we going to service them? They're not yet the high net worth people, I get that, but they're getting there. Do we ignore them or do we not? Doesn't mean you have to be on it, just means you have to think about it when you're doing your campaigns, particularly for things like recruitment. So competition. You had a big presentation yesterday on all industry facts, and I sat through that. I thought, wow, this is really interesting what's happening in your market. So there's a constriction of the number of people in the market. The banks have left. there's more small businesses, there's not many new entrants to the market in terms of new employees. So what that says to me, if I get this right, is that there's more competition for a smaller group of customers, which are becoming high net worths, and there's also really big competition for talent. And we'd love to get more people back in the industry, and we'd love to get more people using your services, but they're just not aware. They don't see the benefits. So either you take, customers from your competition, or you increase the size of the market. There's only a few ways to grow. So how do you do that? Now, one way to do that is, well, my opinion, the best way to do it is to understand your niche. You've got to understand who you are and what you want to do and the people you service specifically. And you might already know that. You might be, I'm super clear on who I service. The guy I'm going to use now, he targets doctors. He's got, I want to work with doctors. High net worth, just particularly suits his products. But how does anyone know that? How do the doctors know that? How do they know that he's for them? How does he communicate that he's got better services and, better understanding of them than anybody else? How do they know? You've got to communicate it. How do you communicate it? Website, LinkedIn, content, etc. Yeah? Got to understand your niche, got to go after it. So, challenge is, how do we stand out? How do we stand out against everybody else who is doing this? Or, if we don't want to do it, how are we going to go and grow our business? So I'm going to give you some tips. The strategy I came up with many years ago, and I wrote a book on it, which a few people have picked up, is called e-traction, digital attraction. And it comes from my long experience working with my grandfather, is pushing sales is not the best way to find the right customers, I don't find. You can cold call, you can do cold marketing, you can buy lists, you can hire people to do things. However, I find it better to bring them to you, to attract. So the needle in a haystack, I don't know where that analogy comes from, but there's a needle in a haystack, you have to get it. You can fossick through there for hours trying to find that thing, or you can stand outside with a magnet, right? Be the person in the marketplace with the magnet that attracts the right customers to you. It's not sales, it's helping. It's still work, it's still effort, but it's not marketing, it's branding. Branding is the attraction philosophy. Put yourself out there in an authentic way, tell people what you do, tell people how you help them, and they will actually come to you. And most of them are referrals. But referrals need a pathway to get to you as well. So how do we do this? The difference is you. And unfortunately, this is not a situation where you can just outsource it and it's a done for you service. So you're involved. Now, it doesn't mean you is in your personal life. It just means we need someone to be the person talking to the customer. Someone who's going to instill trust in them. Someone who cares about them. Someone who's knowledgeable. Someone who's got experience that can be the person, the avatar for the customer. Because you're selling you, your knowledge, your experience. However, it doesn't mean that you have to do all the work. When Elon Musk gets up and does a presentation, I want to buy a Tesla, I don't expect him to be at the outlet. When I buy a Virgin ticket, I don't expect Richard Branson to be there doing it. It's interesting, though, that Richard Branson sold Virgin Australia many years ago, but we still think about him in that context, right? Branding. So, it's not just my advice. This is Amy Cuddy, who's a Harvard researcher, and she did a whole bunch of different studies, one on power stances, which I thought was interesting, but she did another one which looked at influence and trust. How do people build trust? And they found there was two things. So the first thing was they have to be credible. They have to be good at what they do. 100% agree. If you want to help doctors in financial advice, you need to be good at doing that. You've got to demonstrate that you have the credentials and you've got experience and you know how to do it. That's only half the equation from this study. The second half is you've got to be likable. What does likable mean? And to me, likable is I'm like you. We share values. We're similar. Like attracts like. I work with dozens and dozens of people and I do this value analysis process, and consistently I find that the customers that people attract are similar to them in their core values. They could look different, they could sound different, different personalities, different ages, but they share values. And those core values are very important to us. So when we go through this process, and it's in my book, you can read it, it's online, if you share values with people, they become sticky and they become really good customers, and they'll refer you to other people who are similar because people hang out with similar people. So that shared values is why we connect with people so strongly. But again, this is subconscious. We haven't articulated it. How do you articulate your values? How do you know what they are? And how do you communicate that, not directly, but indirectly online? So as I said before, I left my corporate job to spend more time with my kids, have a more flexible workplace. And that's the reason, that's my why, right? That's why I started my business. And to help people, of course. And when I share that story, the people who have kids and want to spend more time with them and want to change their life in that way resonate with that, and the people who don't. And so you're always polarizing. The people in the audience who have shared values with me will be attracted to the message, the brand, and come and talk to me afterwards. And the people who don't. And that's cool, because you can't have everybody. Your niche is your tribe for your products and services. Build your tribe and don't worry about everybody else. No, you're never going to have everybody loving all of the content that you do. Share the content for your tribe. Yeah? Be authentic. You don't have to share it that often. People worry about, how often you've got to share it? Twice a month? Once a month? Not often. We do it once a week generally for our clients. That's not a lot of content to share. All right. So people do cold marketing, just some stats, referrals are the best sort of business. You already know that. Most people I talk to, they get their customers from referrals. But what's the pathway? How many referrals bounce off your website? How many employees who are 30 go to your website and go, that doesn't seem very exciting. Go to your social media. There's nothing to see here. It doesn't build trust. It creates distrust. They go on to the next person. Because you might not be doing it, but there's people who are. In every market, there's people who are early adopters of this technology. Those people are going to attract the opportunities. They're going to attract the staff. They're going to be the people who get those next level of clients. So it's not something you can ignore. Okay, exercise. Everyone grab your phone. Get into Google Windows, Safari, whatever is your choice. DuckDuckGo, if it's your choice. Just like you to put in your name. And let's see what comes up. Have you ever done this? Some people have never done it. What happens when you Google your name? What do you see? Because this is what your clients will see. When I'm in small groups, sometimes I go, cool, let's have a volunteer and I'll put your name into Google, we'll see what we can find. Like, oh my God, don't do that. I'm like, everybody can do that. You should see the stuff I find for my clients. I Google them all the time and I find these photos. What's this photo? Interesting thing is, it's perception. I had a doctor once who refused to have photos online. Private, I want to be private. Someone with the same name had a listing in Google that they were deregistered for malpractice. Was it them? No. Do people know it's not them? No. You've got to manage your brand. Maybe you've got an unusual name and it's easy to find. But that's good and it's bad. Maybe you've got a name and it's hard to find. That's good and it's bad. Who has LinkedIn as number one? Anyone? Yeah? LinkedIn's the most SEOable social media platform. Then website. Anyone got a website? Should have your website. Yeah? Anyone got Instagram? Facebook? Yep. Do you want people looking at that? Often I get people go, oh, but it's private. And I go, you mean all these photos are private? And they're like, oh, I thought they were private. It's just paying attention to it, right? First exercise. How are we going for time? All right. Here's an example. This is one of my clients, Dylan. I'm not going to talk about his financial advice business, but what I'm going to talk about is another business that he ran, because this I think is something of interest to you guys, is how to leverage your time and get more time back. So he started up a side business which helps his clients with providing VAs to do the back office for their businesses, right? For financial advisors specifically. But because he's got a brand, he's building it for that purpose. Whatever he brings into his brand can be directed to any different way. Could be directed to many different companies, many different opportunities. It doesn't matter. And people who are working for other people, if you build your brand now, it's an opportunity to use that in the future for whatever business that you get into. It's too late to do it once you need it. You need to do it now and gradually assemble it over time, right? It's like your health. It's a dripping of every single exercise session that makes the difference. So that's Dylan's brand. I'm going to move through these fairly quickly. The next thing you need to do is think about the market. Now, when you think about Tesla, has anyone got a Tesla, by the way? No? So if you think about a Tesla, right, what do you think about? You think about cars, right? You think about Elon Musk, like him, hate him, right? But the interesting thing about this is there's 3 brands on the screen, and they all matter. His brand matters, the company brand matters, and the product brand matters. And when you go out and leave this session, one thing I'd like you to think about is, if someone Googles me, if someone Googles my company, if someone Googles my service in my area, what shows up, and am I present? And what do they see, and what quality is that? They're the 3 things, the access points that they can come and find you. Through you, referrals go to people, generally, more than companies, right? Tesla famously does not advertise. They don't do general marketing. They do branding. Have they done pretty well? If you look at their stock price, yes. Google your business brand. You can do that when you get home. That's what we built for Dylan. We built him a website and so forth, you know, to help him with his business. And every financial advisor that we work with, or every person that we work with, they often have a side business. They have something else. It's a charity they want to support. It's another business they want to support. And everything we do in their brand attracts for all of those different opportunities. Now, the niche. The niche is super important. I often have people who say, you know, oh, I go, who are your clients? I go, oh, anybody. Anybody wants financial advice. Anyone wants this. And I say, no, that's not true. You'll get more business if you go niche than if you go general. And my accountant, the one in the middle, was a good example of that. When I went and saw him for the first time many, many years ago, I'm like, who are your clients? He goes, anybody. I go, great. Let me ask you some questions. Do you want the guy who rocks up with his shoebox of receipts? Like, no, I don't like that. It's too much work. BHP? Oh, God, no, they're too big. All right, well, that's 2 questions. Let me ask you 20 more questions and narrow down exactly who you like to work with. And he likes to work with digital savvy business owners. He loves digital. He's very techie. Everything's automated. He was on Xero early. Everything's automated in the way he does documents. There's no paper. That's the sort of people he wants to work with. And so he calls that out now. He markets that. He puts that information out there on the way he builds his website, the way he does his process, the way he represents himself, so that those customers get attracted and the others get repelled. And so he gets more of those customers, and those customers refer more of the same customers. So in that way, he's getting exactly what he wants. He's calling it out. Doesn't mean he won't accept someone else, but it means he's calling out a particular type of customer to come towards him. That's the process of owning your niche. It takes time, but I guarantee you, you'll get more clients that way and more staff than if you don't. All right, a few different ways to look at your niche. You can look at demographically, psychographically, what sort of business they are, behaviourally. I was on a coaching call with a client the other day, and they were struggling with this. They're like, oh, my clients are all, you know, I'm not sure how to segment the market. And it wasn't age, it wasn't industry, it wasn't any of those different things, it was belief, a psychographic thing. What his clients, what do they believe, what do they feel that's different to others, just like my accountant. Digital savvy is not a demographic. You can't plug it into Google, right? It's different. So think about it, and it can be geographic. It could be just Geelong. It could be just doctors. But it doesn't have to be. The commonality between all your customers is where the niche is, and if that niche is big enough to support your business, then you go after that one. Doesn't mean you can't add more later. It's just that's where you start. So, Google your niche. The problem with this is, what is the niche? What are the words? Financial advisor? It's not going to cut it. Financial advice for doctors? You know, what is it that your customers would look up to find you, and how do you own that? And I guarantee you in Google, you don't want to put financial advisor, you want to have something very specific. And if you create content around that very specific thing, it'll be picked up in Google. And we do this a lot. You know, Google snippets, you know, when you go down Google and it's got the sort of Q&A bit, the bit that you press and it goes down, they're all blogs. We craft our messages to get into those. So if someone's Googling something, you're the answer to someone's question. That's really, it's free and it's really good quality SEO. Got to understand your niche. All right, so here's one last thing that I want to leave you with that's really important. This push versus pull. When you push, people get pushed away. When you pull, people get attracted to you. It's the content you deliver over time, related to your core message, specifically designed for your niche, on a regular, reliable basis, that's helpful and useful and authentic, that will pull people towards you. That's the main thing that I want you to take away from today. How? That's another question. I'll talk about a little bit about technology when we get into the Q&A, but the way we do it, the minimum number of tools is the best. We use your website, we use your LinkedIn, and we use your email database, and that's it. And we create written content, and we create videos, or we create audio, and that's the content streams. And we place them on LinkedIn, we email them out, and we put them on your website. Very simple. Doesn't have to involve Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, or any of those different things. We can if you're looking to attract a certain audience, but it does not have to. Lo-fi, simple is always the best. Our particular framework is we do a video. Here's my videographer, Adam. Say hi. We do a video once a month. We take the video, we write the blog from the video. We do 2 posts from that video, which could be an edited video or pictures from the video, 4 posts a month. Heaps. Very simple, very time effective for you. We go out and film clients and we get 6 months of content in one filming session. They don't have to see us for 6 months. We meet regularly, we get the approvals, and it drips out over time. It's very, very time efficient because the number one burn for most of my clients is they don't have time. They don't have time to write blogs. They don't have time to do these things. So we get their information captured from them, and the video of you talking authentically is so compelling and so trustworthy compared to trying to craft a message from some writer who doesn't know you and he's trying to just convince people to buy stuff. That's the process. You don't have to use us. Use your phone. You've got technology in your pocket. Get your internal people to do it. But that's the process. Time efficient video, audio, and words captured from you or someone like you and dripped out over the month. That model has worked remarkably well because it sounds simple, but most people don't do it. It's like a gym membership. Doesn't work unless you work it. All right, so this is our method. You understand your brand, we build the brand, and then we leverage it with those features. Okay, I'm not going to go through the sales funnel, and last thing I want to leave you is content is still king. So doing a podcast, writing a book, doing these things is still the most compelling way to attract your audience. And I brought a couple of copies of my book, which you can grab from the stand a bit later on. And right now I'd like to open up for questions.
Cool, thanks.
From the audience, I should say, or Evelyn.
That was a very, very insightful discussion that you have and presentation. And I believe,
Is your mic
do
working?
I need this mic as well? Or?
I think you do.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for the very insightful presentation. Given the time, I think I'll ask one quick question. And if any one of you from the floor wanted to raise any further questions to Andrew, please approach him at the foyer. He'll be there to meet all of you. So my question for you, Andrew, is that you talk a lot about building trust and curating the right message to build personal brand. And given that the rise of influencers and all the sort of people who have made personal traits, they all want to be the next financial advisor. How can our financial planners here, wealth advisors, fully qualified, able to leverage on social media platforms to build their own personal brand and circulate the accurate financial information and attract the right customers?
Yeah. Look, it's a good question. And people talk to me all about influencers. And, obviously people don't necessarily want to be influencers, but they want to be influential and build trust. So the influencer that I think about when I think of the financial industry is the barefoot investor. And I was talking to breakfast about this. So Scott Pape, the barefoot investor, has a brilliant brand. He worked in the media, he's media trained, he understands branding very well. So his book, has anyone read his book, The Barefoot Investor? Yeah. So it's sold, I think, 1.5 million copies in Australia, which is like Harry Potter level. You know, it's crazy amount of sales for a financial book. How many financial books are out there? Hundreds, right? Hundreds of books out there. What's the difference between his book and other books? Is the advice different? You know, is there any difference in what he actually tells people to do? Is it different from what you tell people? And I go, I don't think it is. What does he understand? He understands that the brand is him. He's the communicator of the brand. Is it about him? Well, a little bit, but the message isn't about him. The message is about him helping people. And if the pain of you posting and being in imposter syndrome and worried about posting is greater than you helping people, then you won't do it. But if helping people is greater than the fear of doing it, then you'll continue on and you'll do the content. So he's got a mission to help these people, not your target market, people who don't understand finances, with helping with their finances. So he understands his branding, he understands his niche. His target market is not your target market, but he understands his target market really well. Now, if you read his book, what you'll see is that only 10% of his book is actually advice. Hardly any. You could put his advice into 4 pages, really. But what's his book about? It's motivational and it's building trust. It's motivational and building trust, right? You don't have to give advice. It's not the answers that social media is for. It's building trust and communicating to your target audience that you get them. You understand their pain, their frustrations, and what they want to achieve. And when they're ready to get help, they'll come to you for the actual advice. So his book is to communicate that they're not alone, that there is hope. You can get out of this. Here's a bunch of examples of people who have done the same thing. Follow my advice. Do this, and you'll be okay. Motivation. Everyone knows that if they eat less and they exercise more, they'll be healthier. That's not the problem. It's not the knowledge that is the gap. It's the motivation and discipline to do it. I believe that your advice to people should be, we understand you, we understand what you're trying to achieve, you want to spend more time with your kids, you want to build wealth for the next generation, you want to hand over your assets to, whatever it is. I get you, and build trust with them, and then you come to me for advice. You don't have to be an influencer, but try and be influential to your little niche.
Awesome, that's great. Thanks so much, Andrew. And let's put our hands together to thank Andrew.
Sorry, I couldn't get more time for questions.